Hi, let's recap Person of Interest, Season 4, Episode 5, entitled Prophets. So, this episode was a great one for flashbacks. We love seeing the flashbacks of Harold and his partner as they are putting together a machine and working with the government trying to sell it. And in this episode, we see him flashback to 2009, 11, something like that. And he's teaching the machine basic codes and how to act. He said that all artificial intelligences are born with objectives, that they need to constrict it, so they need to control it so that they learn how to care as well, because they know that, this is a pawn to use to get this, and this is how we reach this goal, because that's how, machine thinks. And so Harold is trying to teach it how to care about people. Machine in one of the flashbacks actually tried to escape to the real world because it tried to manipulate Neil into giving him his password, and then it hacked his laptop. And the machine also at one point tried to asphyxiate Harold when it felt threatened. Really scary thing, and if we can't control the machine, then it will take over. Which is basically the difference between the machine and Samaratin, is that no one taught it control. It's just up on its own, and, Greer is just taking orders from Samaratin. And Samaratin is doing everything it can to look out for its own interests. It thinks that the machine does what it wants, and it doesn't care about anyone. However, Root is the one who's saying, no, she loves us, she cares about me, she chose me. Root comes in and she's changing her identity every single day because the machine wasn't really talking to her at all. She's only getting whispers like static on a phone or an encryption somewhere. So she says God is on the run, and the machine is, only talking to her a few times, but it keeps her going. She's changing her identity every single day, doing new tasks that the machine needs, but the machine's not really telling her what the end goal is. The machine's goal in this episode actually ties into their number, because Samaritan wants to rig a governor election. He puts Perez in charge. At first we think that it's because she will use the full executive power, which is what Samaritan needs to do what it wants. However, then Samaritan sends a woman to assassinate her, so that the new guy, so Nick Dawson is the new governor. That's the one that Greer approaches and says, hey, we can work together. Okay, so meanwhile, Shaw and John are working on their number, whose name is Simon. He's a numbers whiz, and he's good at predicting elections, and he's in trouble because he predicted very formulaically how the election will turn out, that Murray would win. But Samaritan, of course, changed everything, and Perez won instead. Now, the reason that he was wrong is because this was completely undetected, because it was Samaritan doing it. So he goes to the police and to the government trying to tell people, hey, this was rigged, and Samaritan is doing everything it can to kill this guy to keep him from saying anything, because that might lead to people realizing that there's some sort of artificial intelligence running the show. John's also in therapy because he's been called out to the police station. He just shoots guys in kneecaps all the time, and he's very angry all the time, and he's so determined to bring these guys to justice by lying and manipulating and shooting. So the therapist tries to get him to talk. He comes up with some bogus story about his friend dying, and, she didn't buy it. But then he starts to talk about Carter, and that's, when it really hits home, because that's something that actually does cause him emotion, for once. He says that she was just an honest to good cop, and she always did what was right, and she ended up dying, and so he feels like he needs to do this for her and for everybody else, because if he doesn't do it, no one will. So he's definitely got this hero complex going on, and the therapist said, we are making progress. I don't know if, that's going to actually change anything about him. I doubt it, but... So when Greer goes back to the blonde woman, he says that they have like 50 of these guys who are, on board with Samaritan all over the country. And then they talk about the interference that has come up. And I'm guessing the interference is referring to this little ragtag group of machine followers. And so Greer asks Samaritan, what do you want to do? And the Samaritan little text says, "Find the machine." So, Samaritan is on the prowl, and our guys might be in trouble. So Root says that the difference between the machine and Samaritan is that it was taught control, which means that the difference is Harold. So if anyone can do this, it's him. So Harold goes to the machine, and he looks up and he says, "It's time we talked." Alright, let's see what happens next week.